It is truly an honor to be here. Thank you all for being here today on this journey with me. My name is Dr. Michael Maclin. Today we're going to delve into a term that I have coined, which has taken this country by storm. The term is called grantification. That's right, grantification. Not inclusion, not accessibility, but grantification. Grantification is a term that we often don't see and never use. Someone says, well, Dr. Maclin, what is grantification? Thank you for asking. Grantification is the process of creating a composite group of synergistic individuals that retain their identities. See, when we talk about inclusion most of the time, inclusion is we create a policy, a procedure, or a classroom norm, and then ask you, do you want to be included? But grantification speaks from the core value. Dr. Maclin, you said you coined the term. Where did you get grantification from? Well, it's simple. Right? One of the number one most selling countertops in our country when you go to buy a home is granite. Granite is made up of 4 different rocks. Those 4 different rocks keep their true identity to compose and make granite. Granite doesn't burn, granite doesn't stain. And so that's why we need grantification. But let's take a little walk down this country's history to delve into why we need grantification to ensure that we have systems that benefit all. One of the amazements, as Dr. Maclin, a former social studies teacher, one of the amazements which I spent a lot of time teaching, a lot of time spending on this unit, on this lesson, was the Panama Canal. It had all the pieces of a social studies unit. And so, as we know, the Panama Canal was built in 1914, the passageway from the Atlantic to the Pacific. But one thing most people don't know about the Panama Canal is that there were 30,000 men who lost their lives. Dr. Maclin, 30,000 men? Yeah, matter of fact, according to Wikipedia, 25,000 French and 5,000 Americans lost their lives. Well, how did these men lose their lives? By building the Panama Canal. Well, see, when they were building and digging the Panama Canal, they were uprooting structures and services, and so these ants started to come from nowhere. Millions and millions of ants. And so individuals figured that these ants were carrying a disease that were biting these men and causing them to die. These men were actually dying of a very, very high fever, which was related to malaria. And so they said, in order to combat the ants, we are going to create a system so that the ants don't live. Well, see, ants are very dense. You and I, we would float in water. But ants are very dense, and so if you want to kill an ant, ants can't live in water. Their bodies are too light. And so what the individuals did is everywhere where they were building the Panama Canal, they dug 6-foot trenches and filled them with water because they knew the ants wouldn't survive in water. A matter of fact, when a man got taken to the hospital, they put the 4 hospital legs in water because they knew if the ants got to the hospital bed, that if they got to the water, they wouldn't survive. The only problem with that is for those of you who are paying close attention, for those of you who are delving into this speech, I said the ants were dying of malaria. Well, ants don't carry malaria. Mosquitoes do. And how do mosquitoes breed? In water. The system that was created to end the ants were perpetuating the mosquitoes. See, in our schools today, in our educational environments, in our organizations, I offer and say that individuals aren't allowed to be themselves. They are not allowed to have their true identity. We don't celebrate their true identity. As a matter of fact, when you talk about individuals and how they show up, and if they have true voice and choice in a system. We often talk about representation, diversity and representation is great. I think the stat that was given by the NHCS that in 2020, 176 million Americans started their day with a smoothie. Now, Dr. Maclin likes a smoothie just like any of you do. You take some apple, you take kale, you take yogurt. I love a smoothie. But once you blend those ingredients, they no longer have representation. And so once you take an individual and you blend him into an organization, society that's not healthy, you blend her into a culture, a climate that's not healthy, then you no longer have diversity. You're missing the point where you need gratification. The individuals who don't have voice and choice, because I contend that in our educational system today, students don't have voice and choice. In our organizations today, does the workforce look like the management? See, systems with gratification allow individuals to stay true to their individual characteristics while becoming a part of the organization. Oh, well, Dr. Maclin, I've never seen that before. Yes, you have. You've ever heard of anyone interviewing for a job and someone saying they're not a good fit? That fit does not allow them to stay true. In our schools today, just a little data to sum up what I really mean when we talk about our schools today. 14% of students, according to COE graduation chart, 14% of students are not graduating with their cohort because there's no gratification. They can't stay true to their identity. An estimated almost 49.5 or 50% of students, based on the National Health Institute, are being diagnosed with a mental health disorder because they can't stay true to their identity. The leading cause of death between adolescents age 15 through 24, according to the National Alliance on Mental Health, is suicide because they can't stay true to their identity. 20% of students in this country, according to NCES, report being bullied to the point that they want to take their lives because they can't stay true to their identity. Gratification says that we celebrate who they are and that we stay true. There's something in this room that we all have dealt with, and if you haven't dealt with it, you're very fortunate, but it's something that most people deal with. It's called car repairs. That's right, car repairs. When you go to the mechanic diagnoses your car and sees if you need new parts. Mechanic will try to find a refurbished part, and if the mechanic can't find a refurbished part, then they have to buy a new part. See, in that mechanic's mind, that mechanic knows that you need a part for your car. But there's a piece of gratification that relates to the car process. In order to have gratification, you have to have flux, F-L-U-X. You have to see the world anew. What do you mean, Dr. Maclin? The 1906 Moon model car, there's no more parts that you can get refurbished. There's no more parts that you can go buy. In order to get a part for the 1906 Moon model car, you have to see the world anew, and the part has to be made. As a matter of fact, today, a number of our car manufacturers, BMW, Porsche, are using the 3D printer to make parts. That's what seeing the world anew is. You can't see the world the way you've done it before. As a matter of fact, Margaret Wheatley, her quote that she quoted from Einstein, which I absolutely love, her quote says that no problem can be solved in the same consciousness where it was formed. We have to see the world anew. Dr. Maclin, you gave us a lot today. You gave us gratification. You gave us flux. You talked about the Panama Canal. But what are my next steps? I am so glad you asked. If you're an organization, if you're a school district, if you're a school teacher, and you wonder, how do I know, or what are my next steps as it relates to gratification? I'm going to give you the 3 C's of gratification. The first one is Cubano. C-U-I, bono. In the Latin, it means who benefits. So right now, looking at your current system, looking at your current structure, looking at your current classroom, who's benefiting and who's not? The next C, Cubano, who benefits. The next C, Carbono, which actually is diamond or graphite that's found in coal, so it's critical. And so take a look at your organization, take a look at your classroom, take a look at your school, and see what are the critical needs. Cubano, who benefits. Carbono, critical. The last C, chromo. Chromo actually means many colors in the Greek. And so there's many different ways to get to your outcome, but granitification is about action. It's about collective action steps to assume what you need. There's a story, and I'm closing now. There's a story of a young man. And this young man was excited because his father had given him the keys. He had turned 16, and he needed a belt. And his father said to him, okay, you can go to the store and you can buy a belt. This young man was excited because his father's trust was earned and not given. So this young man was extremely excited because on this day, he had earned his father's trust. And so he went to the store to buy a belt. And when the young man walked in at the age of 16, he saw a Caucasian lady in the corner who appeared to be stealing. Well, this young man, not really savvy and cognizant of what was going on, he went on to buy his belt. As he bought his belt, he got his belt, he went and checked out and got to the register, got a receipt, got his bag. And as this young man was leaving the store, the same elderly Caucasian lady was walking out the same time he was. As this young man got to the threshold of the store's door, the alarm went off. This young man, knowing he had done nothing wrong, stopped. The elderly Caucasian lady kept going. The story goes is that the manager came from about 20 feet away and got this close to this young man's face and said, if your black self is stealing, you're going to jail. Come with me. The young man went to the back room with the manager and a security guard, and they searched the young man to find out that the young man had nothing on him, and the security sergeant said there must have been a mistake. You can go ahead and go. That young man got into his car and cried all the way home. Now, I wish I could tell you that that's a story that I read. I wish I could tell you that's a story that I heard, but that young man was me. And as I got into the car and I cried all the way home, knowing something had happened that wasn't right, knowing that there was a system that was taking place that wasn't right. I never understood why a victim of sexual assault would never efface their aggressor, but I understood at that point because I understood what systems where the power lied. And so I ask you today, there is no need just for representation. There is no need for justification. What's needed in our systems is gratification. Thank you.